Hello everyone, welcome back to another lesson. I'm Carla from Expert Math Tutor, and today's lesson is factoring a perfect square trinomial. So let's get to it. When factoring a perfect square trinomial, we must use the formula a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, which equals a plus b the quantity squared, or a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, which equals the quantity a minus b squared. These formulas look a little crazy, but what you have to understand is the first term, a squared, and the last term, b squared, are always perfect squares. Now, perfect squares are numbers that you can take the square root of and it equals an integer. So if I took 1 and multiplied by itself, 1 times 1, I will get 1, right? So therefore, I could say that the square root of 1 is equal to 1, which is an integer. So therefore, it's a perfect square. Now, if I took 2 and squared it, so 2 times 2, I get 4. That tells me that 4 is a perfect square. And why is it a perfect square? Because we can take the square root of 4, and that equals an integer, 2. So from here, once we figure out a and b, we can multiply them and double it to get our middle term, 2ab. So let's look at the first example, x squared plus 6x plus 9. So I'm going to take the first term, x squared, and it has to equal a squared. So I can set them equal to each other. A squared is equal to x squared. If I take the square root of both sides, a will equal x. So I just found out a. A is x. Now let's take 9 and set that equal to b squared. 9 is equal to b squared. Take the square root of both sides. 3 is equal to b. Now that I have a and I have b, I can multiply them. 3 times x, which is equal to 3x, and double it, which is multiplying by 2 to get 6x. Now notice 6x is the middle term. So everything checks out. So therefore I can say that x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals the quantity x plus 3 squared. Alright, let's move on. So another example, x squared plus 4x plus 4. So the first term, x squared, we're going to set that equal to a squared. A squared is equal to x squared. If we take the square root of both sides, the square root of a squared is a, the square root of x squared is x. So a equals x. I also know that 4 will equal b squared. B squared is equal to 4. If I take the square root of both sides, the square root of b squared is b, the square root of 4 is 2. Now, if you're having a problem with square roots, you forget them for whatever reason, you can always go back to this chart that I have here for the perfect squares from 1 to 30. And you can see that 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, and so on. So just remember that chart for reference. So now that I have A and I have B, I'm going to multiply them. So x is A, x times B is 2, x times 2 is 2x. And if I double it by multiplying by 2, I get 4x. 4x equals my middle term. So now I can just plug and chug. X squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to A plus B, the quantity squared. A is x plus B is 2 squared. Let's move on. So for the next two problems, we're going to use the same formula, but I want to bring your attention to the signs. This middle sign right here, this sign right in front of the 2AB is negative, and so is this sign right here. So in number 3, x squared minus 10x plus 25. I notice that it also has this minus sign. These are the same. Okay, so we're going to use this formula. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to recognize that a squared must equal x squared. So we're going to set them equal to each other. A squared is equal to x squared. If I take the square root of both sides, the square root of a squared is a. The square root of x squared is x. So a equals x. Now I also know that b squared will equal 25. If I take the square root of both sides, the square root of b is b. The square root of 25 is 5. So now I know b is equal to 5. If I multiply a times b and double it, I'll get this middle term. So let's do that. So a is x, b is 5, x times 5 is 5x. Now if we double it by multiplying by 2, we'll get 10x, which is the middle term. So we can say x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals x minus 5, the quantity squared. Next example, we have x squared minus 24x plus 144. So a squared will equal x squared. A squared will equal x squared. If we take the square root of both sides, the square root of a squared is just a. The square root of x squared is x. So a equals x. Now b squared will equal 144. B squared is equal to 144. We take the square root of both sides. The square root of b squared is just b. Square root of 144 is 12. Okay, so we have a and b. We can multiply them together now. So a is x, so x times b is 12. X times 12 is 12x. Now let's double that by multiplying by 2. 12x times 2 is 24x. So 24x is our middle term. So we can say that x squared minus 24x plus 144 is equal to a is x minus b is 12. Alright, let's move on. So we're going to take a squared and set that equal to 9x squared. A squared is equal to 9x squared. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of a squared is just a. The square root of 9x squared. Okay, so a will equal 3x. Now b squared will equal 16. So if I set them equal to each other and solve for b, the square root of b squared is b, and the square root of 16 is 4. So a is equal to 3x, b is equal to 4. I can multiply them now. 3x times 4 will equal 12x, and double it by multiplying by 2 to get 24x. 24x is my middle term. A is equal to 3x. 3x plus b is equal to 4. 4. And I'm done. It's that simple. So let's try another example. So a squared will equal 100x squared. If I take the square root of both sides, the square root of a squared is a, the square root of 100 is 10, and the square root of x squared is x. So a will equal 10x. B squared will equal 49. So if I take the square root of both sides, the square root of b squared is b, the square root of 49 is 7. So b will equal 7. Now let's multiply a and b. We have 10x times b, which is 7. So it is 70x. Now if I double that, which is the same as multiplying by 2, 70x times 2 is then 140x. 140x is equal to my middle term. So let's plug in a and b, and we'll be done. So 100x minus 140x plus 49 is equal to 10x minus 7, the quantity squared. Now if you look at number 5 and you compare it to number 6, notice how number 5 has 2 plus signs. Okay, we have 2 plus signs. And in number 6, we have a minus and we have a plus. Okay, so if the perfect square trinomial has 2 positives, the positive will be in its answer. If it has a negative here, there will also be a negative in its answer. I hope you found this lesson super helpful. If you did, please like the video right now, share it with all your friends. If you want to be part of the hashtag MathPack, write hashtag MathPack in the comment section down below and provide your answer to the following 2 sample exercises.